Joining us also is Ankit Kubar, who's been looking at all the facts and figures surrounding this. But before that, I want to go across to Gaurav Sawant, our managing editor, in on this. Gaurav, what are you making of this? I mean, this is a huge claim to make, of his last visit that was in 2011. He's very openly saying, I used to pass on information to the ISI, which basically makes him a spy. And he says, I was then Vice President Hamid Ansari's mehman. Is there more than meets the eye here? What do you think?
So, the fact that he's coming to India post 26/11, the worst terror attacks that took place on our country, on our people in 2008, and yet is a guest of the then Vice President, and Hamid Ansari was Vice President of India from 2007 to 17, and then going back and passing on this information as he confesses on a Pakistani YouTube channel to Pakistan's ISI, yes, is a cause for concern, should be known to Indians, and that is why, the fact remains, what kind of people do we invite to our country? And this may just be the tip of the iceberg. There are many others considered extremely respectable journalists, intellectuals, civil society members who dutifully go back and report to Pakistan's ISI. Such is the nature of the beast. Are we more careful? Have we learnt our lessons? India is a country that virtually extended the red carpet to David Coleman Headley, a Pakistan-born American passport holder who was wrecking not just these vital assets and points in Mumbai, but also the National Defence College in the national capital and several other VAVPs in our country. So there are lessons to be learnt, major lessons to be learnt, especially if these people then boast that they were guests of Hamid Ansari, the then Vice President of India.
Abhishek, how are you seeing this, the claim made by this particular individual? How would you interpret what he's saying?
Well, Shiv, first of all, we need to look at the bigger question. There are probably many more like him that the ISI uses, who cross over, who come on a legal, valid visa. But as he mentioned himself, that there were favors extended to him. He was given visas for 6 cities as opposed to just 2 cities, which is the norm. And not just once, but on several occasions he visited India, visited various cities, went back and gave information to ISI. And now the bigger question is, what is the nature of information that he had? What was the brief given to him when he came here? All these aspects Pakistan needs to come clear on. As far as India is concerned, this is a test case that there needs to be a review of Pakistanis coming to India, especially guests like him who are coming to India, to make sure that these don't turn out to be spies.
Ankit, does former Vice President Hamid Ansari need to comment or clarify on this? Because this man claims to have been a guest at the Vice President's residence. In your view, with everything that you've seen, and you've detailed many of the elements of that visit, especially in India, do you think that the Vice President now has the onus to come out and clarify about this, or he doesn't need to?
Well, Shiv, anybody can, come from Pakistan, go back and several years later make certain claims. But what these images conclusively show is that this person who is now making sensational claims as in spying for ISI under the guise of being a columnist or journalist, attending seminars in Aligarh, in New Delhi. What these images show is that this person indeed had access to high-profile events that was attended by then Vice President Mr. Ansari and also then Cabinet Minister Mr. Ghulam Nabi Azad, including others. What we can show through these images, which have been taken, released by the foundation that belongs to Mr. Ansari himself, that this person who is now incriminating himself that he spied for the ISI visited at least 2 times to New Delhi at 2 different events. One was the irony you can notice is that one was in the aftermath of the 26/11 terrorist attacks. One was based on terrorism. Second was only 4 months later was the topic was an interfaith religious conference. And the other one, at least 2 conferences that we have documented through these publicly available images is in 2007 at the Aligarh Muslim University, and then again in the aftermath of 2008 Mumbai terrorist attack, you remember that during that part of time, it was very difficult for any Pakistani visiting, whether it's journalists, civil society members, forget any agents, to get an Indian visa. So we can conclusively say that the claims that he's making are not empty claims, because he can be seen attending these high-profile events with cabinet ministers, with former vice presidents. Clearly, somebody has to come up and, make some kind of clarification.
Gaurav, you wanted to add to that? Gaurav, go ahead.
Shiv, there is another aspect, that has been talked about. When somebody occupies such a high constitutional authority in our country. You've been the vice president of our country for 10 years, 2007 to 2017. You know the country in and out. You've been our ambassador to very critical countries and crucial countries like Iran. Who's the people who's getting an invitation and then using your name is something that that constitutional authorities have to beware. They, their team, their staff, and then also the people they are seen with. For example, the Popular Front of India, that's an organization that's under investigation. But when a former Vice President of India attends a function which is associated with an affiliate of the Popular Front of India, it raises many issues. And on a certain Republic Day, when a former Vice President of India, who's been one of the top officials also of our country, has had the best of our country that India can offer to anyone, and then expresses that apprehension when no longer the Vice President, that intolerance is rising in India on an international forum, that the law minister of the country or the external affairs ministry of the country has to counter him. There are many questions that rise out of all these situations in such a scenario, Shiv, that need to be looked into.